PJ.
Starting it now, Jeff. Hello, welcome to Axiom Cave. Open mic night, 29th of July 2018. PJ, got Stav, Jeff, Jouster, and anybody else who feels like coming on. I'm going to stick up the link for you to join the show. There you go. Should see it at the bottom. If you want to pop on and have a chat, feel free. Just put that address gov.ly/Axiom into your address bar and click go. Right, what's the topic? And how are we all doing?
Evening, PJ. All right. What was we talking about?
We were talking about delivery services.
Oh, right, yes. And takeaways, wasn't it?
Takeaways, yeah, and you come up with a brilliant idea of proper home cooked, a delivery service doing a full English breakfast and delivering it to your door. I think is a brilliant idea.
Yeah, more traditional meals for takeaways rather than these exotic meals from far off land. It's just a question I was putting, that's all. Basic question is why has these takeaways got to be from a foreign country? It's just or exotic meals from another parts of the world, rather than perhaps more traditional takeaways. I know you can get fish and chips delivered from certain places, some places, but generally that's about it. There's nothing else that's delivered from a takeaway service or anything that's set up as a takeaway. Like a curry house is pretty much, they've got their restaurant part, but mostly they rely on takeaways, don't they?
There's another aspect actually, Stav, that we didn't touch on, and that is that if you wanted a full English breakfast delivered first thing in the morning, well, all these other places that sell curries and kebabs and all the rest of it, they all work in the evening. So you can get one of those for your evening meal, but there's nothing to get for a breakfast, is there? What about delivery service to start the day where you get up, you phone up the shop and you say, I want a nice delivered breakfast, and they'll say, we'll guarantee delivery within half an hour, and you'll get sausage, eggs, bacon, baked beans, your hash browns, your black pudding, and so on and so forth, delivered to your door. You start the day with a nice full-on breakfast because you've got a long day ahead of you, so you want to start the day the right way. And for 7 or 8 quid or whatever it is, you get yourself a slap-up feed first thing in the morning. Why not? I think it's a bloody brilliant idea.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, a lot of people always started off with a full cooked breakfast. So some people just ram some cereal down them, I guess. But I mean, a lot of people like a full breakfast, don't they? So I think it's a good idea that if somebody wants to set up a new type of business, then do a breakfast takeaway delivery service for those people who just haven't got time to make it themselves. And there seems to be a lot of those about.
Well, I'm all very pro-choice stuff. I mean, I was chatting to Jouster a few minutes ago before the show, and Jouster was saying, well, he wouldn't do it because he'd probably cook it himself if that's what he wanted. If he just wanted, egg and bacon or whatever, he'd cook it himself. But everybody's different. Everybody's different, and if there's a market for something, I think it's all about being pro-choice, isn't it? And having the ability to choose what you want. The more diversity of choice, the better. I say in a society, the more diversity of choice, the merrier. I mean, somebody come up with the idea that years and years and years you couldn't get a Sunday roast unless you cooked it yourself, and then somebody come up with the idea, I know, let's deliver a Sunday roast on a Sunday. So you could order a nice Sunday roast dinner, have what you want, and they deliver it straight to your door. Brilliant idea. Yeah. You could do the same with breakfast. You have to get up early in the morning if you were going to cook breakfast to sell and deliver. So you'd have to run your business first thing in the morning. But you know, but why not? If that's what you want to do, I'm all for that. You could start. You could have it running from, I don't know, your deliveries running from 7 in the morning till 11 in the morning, and that would be classed as your breakfast or your brunch. You know, and
Is this home delivery?
eh?
Is this home delivery?
Yes, home delivery, or you do it from a shop, so you could have a cafe, so you could have people coming in, and you could be serving them.
Yeah, but they're coming in. You just said they're coming in.
Yeah, but no, you could have like a traditional shop that's a cafe that does a breakfast in the morning, but also delivers them as well.
They already do that.
Eh?
They already do it.
What, they deliver breakfast?
I tell you
From a
something, Jeff.
cafe.
I'll tell you something, Jeff. There's going to be some philanthropists listening to this tonight. I tell you, got some brainstorming ideas.
Oh, I think it's a good. I don't know of any cafe that delivers a breakfast. Do you?
Yeah. You want to get out a bit more.
Well, I know you can go to a cafe and sit down and have a breakfast, but I didn't know if any cafe that would.
Yeah, but I agree with
takeaway.
Jeff. I don't know anybody that you know, not round here. Maybe I'm out of touch, but there's no service around here where you can order a full breakfast and get it delivered as a takeaway. I don't know any around here. You can go to their cafeteria, of course, and have a full English breakfast, whatever. But I don't know any of them doing a delivery service to people for their breakfast in the morning if they wanted a full breakfast, you know, a full cooked fried breakfast. So why not? Why not? I mean, I'd pay a £5 for a full breakfast delivered, wouldn't I?
I think you have to pay a bit more. I'm just saying, from my experience, you have to pay a bit more than a £5.
Well, whatever it is today, I'm out of touch with prices.
You'd probably be around about a £5 plus a couple of quid delivery charge or something like that. I would have thought, but you know,
How much would you pay in a cafeteria today? You're a builder. You go in cafeteria.
£5.50 to sit down.
Right. Okay. So you're £7.50 then delivered. I still think that's reasonable.
of course, it's feasible. It's doable.
And most people now expect free delivery, don't they?
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, but usually,
Well, they just stick it on the price then, don't you?
hang on a sec. You only usually get free delivery if you spend over a tenner. I mean, they've got realistic. Any takeaway place that delivers usually charge at least 10 or 11 quid if you want free delivery. So you've got to buy at least 10 or 11 quid's worth usually to get free delivery. So that's to be expected. So if you pay 2 quid for a delivery, if you're only paying 5.5 quid for a breakfast and 2 quid delivery, that's perfectly reasonable and feasible. You know?
Yeah, I think so. How much do you pay for a deep pan pizza at night, a 10-inch pizza or whatever it is? How much do you pay? How much is it, Jeff, for pizza?
It's a lot of money. It's a bloody lot of money. I mean, it depends on where you get it from, but if you go to somewhere like Domino's, you know, they're expensive. They're really expensive. You know, it's sort of 15 quid or something for a bloody pizza, or you know, it's loads of money. But I mean, they're not all, most of them aren't that expensive. Most of them are a lot cheaper, but
I went to Domino's earlier. I got 2 pizzas for $14.99. So yeah,
wait,
15 quid.
Is that one of those buy one get one free?
Yeah, but that's only on collection though. So we're talking about deliveries. So you won't get something like that, would you?
Yeah. If you get one of those
So 15 quid.
deals, they're not too bad if you get a buy one get one free deal off of Domino's, but that's the only sort of good deals they got.
Yeah, so $7.50. If you want to half that, then we'll just say $7.50 for a pizza. Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually you get like, what is it?
There you go then.
What's the different size pizzas you get? 9-inch, 12-inch, and 14-inch. So for 7.5 quid, you probably get a 9-inch pizza, something like that. Maybe a 12-inch with only 2 toppings or something.
You know, that's just one idea of many. I mean, a full breakfast, and then you could have, like you say, instead of you could have full casseroles, stews, hot pots, and everything like that in the evening. Why don't you know? I mean, I know they do it in America, but because Lopi used to say about it, but do they do it
I'll tell
here?
you an idea that might make a bit of money if it's something you want to do yourself. Is like obviously you'd have an issue with councils and that and trying to get permission, but just selling like bits of food and drinks at bus stops because I'm forever waiting at these bus stops and don't know if I get hungry. Just
Yeah,
like
that's another.
someone pushing it around on a cart or something. Even if it's just like a burrito or something like that, do you know what I mean? It's a good idea.
Absolutely. Why not?
I'm all for pro-choice.
I don't. You see, today I think there is plenty of ideas for people who want to do a business or start something themselves today. And why not do it in a traditional way? I mean, it would be an extra bonus. Surely people are fed up with pizzas and curries and bloody and Chinese takeaways now. Surely they're fed up with this stuff right now. I don't want a bit of change, you know. Don't people want to change?
They don't want it, stuff.
Yeah, but you're not in Karachi or Delhi. Wait a minute. Explain to me why that's the norm as a takeaway. I'll just entertain the thought. Why is a curry the norm in a country where it's not a traditional meal? Why is that the norm? Explain that to me.
Because it's different from their traditional food. They're bored.
Yeah, but guys, you both forget. You're neither one of you are thinking fourth dimensionally. All these takeaways like curries, kebabs, that's in the evening.
Hang on a minute. Wait a minute. No, I'm not accepting that, Jouster. How long has curries been served as takeaways in this country?
I don't know.
50 years?
I don't know. Say 30 years.
Well,
Domino's. Well, it's over a generation. You say they're bored and they want a curry? A whole generation's grown up not knowing any other takeaway except for a curry.
But you got to remember, most English food is cooked badly. Come on, you got to be fair. We're not renowned for being the best.
Well, curries is just bad food cooked good.
No, that's not fair.
Well, ain't it? That's where curries came from. Just rotten stinking meat, and they use curry powder just to disguise it. It were originally. That's where they came up with it.
That's like a real Stone Age medieval explanation of what a curry. There's no such thing as a curry, but I've gone beyond that. That's what the British have labelled it as. There's hundreds or even thousands of different types of Indian regional dishes, isn't there? Why do we like spices?
We're not talking. Yeah, but we're not talking about people who are a bit more educational in their, you know, their taste, like Persian curries and the different types. There's thousands, I know, but we're talking about your average man who goes for a vindaloo or a tikka. They don't seem to know anything else. They think all curries, vindaloos, or tikkas or something like that, don't they?
Let's be honest. Another idea for a good business startup. Another good idea is if you.
And they're not even traditional curries anyway.
I just thought of another good idea for a business startup. All right, just to give people ideas, to get them thinking. If you don't like halal and ritual slaughter of animals, start a halal-free food shop. Now it can be a cafe or it can be something like a grocery shop or anything like that. You could start a halal-free shop which sells no halal products. So you're not paying jizya tax. You're not paying jizya tax at all. You're buying traditional English foods or whatever, or anything that's halal-free or kosher-free. Halal and kosher-free. So you're not paying any taxes apart from your standard English taxes, if there are any. It shouldn't, in my opinion, there shouldn't be any taxes on food.
What do you mean if there is any? There isn't.
I know they put tax on things like
Listen to what
sugary
you're
stuff.
saying. Listen to what you're saying.
I think they put taxes on things like sugary stuff anyway.
Establish whether halal products have taxes on whatever products. Yeah.
They do. They put a jizya tax on halal certified food. They put a thing called a jizya tax, so you're paying to fund Islamic terrorism and things like that, or whatever. So you know, I want to buy. I want to be able to go to a shop where there's no halal tax, no kosher tax, no. To be honest, I want to go to a shop where there's no taxes, where all foods are tax free, no VAT, no tax, no anything like that, and where you can buy quality food that's organic, not covered in pesticides, healthy, natural, tax free foods. Now, that to me,
What's the definition of organic, by the way?
organically grown, not covered in pesticides and insecticides. And
Okay, to be
like
certified as organic traditionally, what is the general rule?
naturally grown, traditionally naturally grown.
No, it's not naturally grown. It's food grown on land that's been fallow for 5 years. Yeah.
Right, well,
But commercial status, you can still class organic food with 20% fertilizers and pesticides.
Well, pesticide free then, whatever you want to call it, pesticide free food, just natural food, natural, healthy, organic, you know, healthy grown, farm grown produce or whatever. You want to be able to have the choice to go to a shop where you're not paying bloody halal and kosher taxes or whatever. I think people should have that choice. Everything in the supermarket that you buy, they don't always put it in a separate section, like halal section or whatever. So you're buying stuff you don't realize you're paying taxes on, which is wrong. I believe that that's wrong. We shouldn't have to pay a bloody jizya tax to some Islamic state system or whatever it is.
So you got to understand that people might be listening to this.
Yeah.
And they're probably thinking, well, you might as well stick a Star of David and the crescent sign on the window going, no Muslims or Jews allowed.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's
I was joking.
No. It's a choice. It's a choice. If they don't want to, if you want to sell bacon, traditionally bacon is an English food. A Christian English food will eat bacon and sausages and things like that. Now, if they don't like it, they don't have to eat it. It's choice. It's choice.
Are we having a food conversation here, or are we having a religious conversation?
No, it's about pro-choice. It's about being pro-choice. So you know, if Mr. Muslim wants to go and have a kebab because he likes paying his jizya tax and he likes or zakat tax or whatever it is, you know, then he can go and buy his kebab if that's what he wants. But if you're English and you decide you want English food and you don't believe in animal ritual slaughter, and you prefer animals slaughtered the traditional English way.
Can I just take this conversation to where you really want it to go? Why don't you just say you feel oppressed and threatened in your own cultural environment?
I'm just talking about choice. I'm just talking about choice, Joester. It's got nothing to do with that. It's a matter of choice. Some people are the British, your average British person is an animal lover, right? They don't want animals having their throats slit and bleeding out to death. That's not what they want. They want an animal that's slaughtered in a traditional way, as in unless they're vegan, of course, or whatever. They want their things done in the most humane way possible and traditional. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Nothing offensive or wrong with that. Everybody's got it should be choice. It's all about choice.
Well, I should imagine, Jeff, there's quite a few people that maybe even one or two who might listen to this broadcast who don't know they're actually paying another tax on top of the taxes they already pay in the way of VAT because of the lorries that carry the produce to these places, which is a form of tax on food, as we know, the haulage tax and rest of it that goes on food, the hidden taxes. I'm sure there's a lot of them that don't know they then have to pay another tax, which is not a tax that's actually been put through Parliament in legislation, like zakat, for instance. Now, zakat is not recognised in our legal system because there's no legislation say that you have to pay a zakat tax, but it's on every meal that comes through that through produces of takeaway shops that have that particular faith in their business, which it is in their business because it's part of their business.
For our viewers, staff, maybe you'd like to explain for our viewers what the difference is between zakat tax and jizya tax, because most of our viewers probably unaware of what they are and what type of things are charged with these taxes. Would you like to sort of give us an explanation of that, if that's at all possible, or do you know?
Well, I think they're both based on a charitable basis. That's how they portray it, as a voluntary tax. Zakat is something that's not totally allegedly enforced, but if you are a Muslim of Islamic faith, then you are. You're not obliged to pay it, but if you don't pay it, you'll be kind of looked down on, and you'll probably get a right ticking off from the local
it's equivalent to a
imam at the local mosque if you reported that you was trying to avoid. But you can't avoid it anyway because
is it equivalent to a tip?
No, it's you're expected to pay it, whereas a tip is you're not obligated. A tip you can say, well, that was a pretty poor service, I'm not going to pay it. And you can walk out the rest. Nobody say anything about it. It's your opinion that you didn't get the service, so you're not going to leave a tip. You still have to pay for the service, yeah. But with zakat, it's
not necessarily. If you're not happy with your service and you think it's poor service, then you do have statutory rights.
Yeah, but not in Islam. You don't.
Oh no, well, I thought we were on about laws over here.
Because it's a way of life. Let's get it right. I'm not having a go. I'm just saying it's a way of it. It's a political, religious thing that they, it's part of what they're expected to do. It's part of the whole thing. So that's where zakat is. But they try and say, well, it's done in a charitable way. It's not enforced. But if you don't pay it. But there are those taxes within producers in supermarkets that are hidden or you're not told about. They may have a halal certificate on them, but I mean, if you're, it can be very discreetly put on there where you can't see it, but you buy that produce or that service or whatever. And you don't know you're paying it on top of all the other taxes that you're paying, and I think it's not very honest.
I tell you what, there's a lot of dishonesty about it. I know with some places they put a service charge, a service tip rather. Service charge is fine, but a tip they'll put down as a service charge on the bill, and they'll include it in the cost of the food. When they call it what a gratuity. Yeah. Now I don't agree with that because tips should be a choice. They should be a choice for extra service above and beyond the call of duty. If you think somebody's done a fantastic job, like a waitress or whatever, then you should be allowed to tip them. That tip should be for them only. I don't believe with gathering all the tips and sharing them between all the staff. If one staff provides extra service, they should be able to get that tip for themselves, and it should be nothing to do with the government. It shouldn't be taxed because it's a tip. And I don't agree also with any taxes on food at all. Any food, or drink, food or drink, because drink is necessary, food is necessary. I think all taxes on all foods and all drinks should be banned and outlawed. Outlawed permanently. That's me. I don't personally agree with taxes on any food or drinks whatsoever. Never have done, never will do. To me, it's immoral, it's reprehensible, and wrong. That's just me. Call me old-fashioned, but that's the way it used to be in this country, and that's the way it always was. Nobody ever charged a tax on food or drink, but that's all gradually changing. Um, sticking VAT on this and that and all the rest of it. I don't agree with VAT either. Sales tax. I think it's immoral. I think it's wrong. If you've already paid tax on your income, you shouldn't be forced to pay taxes again and again and again and again on everything else. They've just brought in so many taxes now that you don't realise. You haven't got a clue how much you're paying. You're paying way too much. Everybody odds for everything, and then you're paying way too much again. Continually, this sort of stuff goes on all the time, and it's just daylight robbery. That's just my opinion, and I'm having a bit of a rant here because I find it extremely annoying. And I think it needs to be said that over the course of time, they have incrementally brought in so many bloody stealth taxes, tax upon tax upon tax upon tax. It's just got out of hand. Out of hand. We need to get back to common sense in this country and get back to the way it was in the past.
So if our viewers have got any thoughts about taxes, pop on the show. Tell us what you think.
Well, actually, it's funny now. Just going back to what I was saying, it's now termed in Wiki and places like that. I just checked up. The zakat is, if you're a practicing Muslim, you are obliged to pay the zakat tax. You are obliged to pay it. Whereas jizya is for what they term a dhimmi, which is a non-Muslim who's living under an Islamic state or an Islamic government country. If you're a dhimmi, you're a non-believer, and you choose not to be a Muslim in a Muslim-run country, then you're obliged to you have to pay the jizya tax. It doesn't always apply to the woman of the family of the dhimmi or the children, but it certainly does apply to the male slave, basically, which is what a dhimmi is.
One thing.
Does it? Hang on. 1 sec. Stav, does it apply in the UK to a non-Muslim purchaser walking into a shop and buying a can of or a item in a Muslim shop?
What, zakat?
Yeah.
Well, for the shop, right, to sell halal certificated products, right, there's automatically the zakat tax put on the price of the product. So inadvertently, you may not be aware that when you buy the product, some of that goes to the, goes in zakat to the people who supply the product, and then it trickles back to, if it's a product that's produced
in a country of origin that is a Muslim country.
Yes. So if it's produced in, say, Saudi Arabia, they will receive that. Inadvertently, you may not know as a purchaser that you bought that, but that tax on that product, because it's halal certificated, will go back to the Saudi company that makes that product. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure also we pay a jizya tax on certain other products as well.
Well, that would be really sneaky. That would be really sneaky.
Where's the UK's legislation for this?
Hang on a sec.
There is no British legislation for it.
Apparently, any halal certificated foods you pay a jizya tax on, and so things like a Cadbury's chocolate now apparently is halal certificated. So there will be a proportion of the money that you pay for a bar of Cadbury's chocolate that will have some form of jizya tax on it, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, Stav? And things like Marmite as well. Is that also got a jizya tax? Because that's halal certificated.
Well, they won't admit to it being a jizya tax. You won't get that admission out of the product of the country if it's a Muslim country or it's an Islamic state like So let's just say Saudi Arabia. It's open. We know that's an Islamic-run country state. That's what they're proud of. That's their religion. That's fine. They won't openly admit that it's a jizya tax. They may say it's halal certified and it has zakat can be actually redeemed off of that product. But they will say, well, listen, all of our products have the halal certificate on it. So if you're not aware that there's a certain amount of tax on that as well, then more for you. You should be because we're not hiding anything. But to say it's jizya, I think it would probably come up against a lot of problems in countries around the world. Well, it should do. I don't know whether it does. But jizya is for a non-Muslim to pay if you're living in a state of an Islamic state-run country. If you was living as a non-believer in Saudi Arabia, not as a Muslim, then you would have to pay jizya. Yeah.
So we're not paying the jizya in the UK.
As far as they want, it's not admitted, but that they can say that a certain amount of zakat is. Listen, if you want to go online, right? There's plenty of charities out there, Muslim-run charities, where you can pay through British banks or even actually some of them are banks, right? And you can go on there, you can find the Islamic charity you want to pay to, right? They'll have a calculator on it for whichever one it is.
I have stuff.
And it's got how much you've got to pay in zakat, to how much you want to donate to that charity.
I have. Yeah. I'm trying to put this in context as to living in the UK as a non-Muslim, as a halal, which is a prayer. Yeah. For example, when they butcher meat.
Yes.
Or they do a prayer as into a blessing of a meal.
Yes.
Now, when you make let's give Jeff this example. If you make a batch of chocolate, yeah, let's say it's an £85 charge on a 100,000 litre batch of chocolate, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's distributed over, say, 50,000 bars of chocolate, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, I don't know how it's calculated on a bar of chocolate,
yeah.
But
well, let's just then if it's halal specified, but if it was a product which was imported, let's say from Pakistan, well, that would come under import duty anyway. So it's minuscule. Just the fact that it's called, it's not. You could classify it as import duty. You'd pay anyway, wouldn't you?
They will still see, right, the profit that goes back to the company, if it's in Pakistan or Saudi Arabia or wherever else, right, a certain amount of that will be paid in taxes, okay, in their taxes. If you export a product, right, to another country, there's an import charge for you to receive that in that country, which is whatever the country it goes to, that's their taxes. But on that product from Pakistan or wherever, right, there will be a tax that they're unlevied on there, hidden in the price. It doesn't have to be output. But if you want to send to them, right, to get the product from them or donate even for a charity, you have to pay tax on it. That is zakat, as far as I know. I don't know the other ways that they calculate it, Jouster. You may know better than me, but at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about. What are the hidden taxes in all of this, right? If there is any, and how comes halal certificated food is allowed in our supermarkets here, right? Without full disclosure on where that zakat or the tax goes on that halal product. There should be full disclosure on what percentage it is, as well as all the other taxes you have to pay on it in this country. I think it should be out there for people to be able to say, well, look, that bar of chocolate is 50 pence, and 1 pence of that's going to zakat. Why isn't that information out there? I was just asking the question, that's all. That's all it is. And every how do you calculate it on a takeaway meal? How can you calculate that on a takeaway meal? How is that calculated? Because nobody knows, do they? You don't know how much zakat you're paying, or is going back to that, whatever it is.
Okay, just as a random searcher. Yeah, go on.
I don't know. Perhaps I'm talking a lot of crap.
I just want to get rid of this. Sorry, Steve. I just want to get rid of this tiny echo that we're getting a bit of feedback through. Struggling to work out who's feeding back, but if Summer's can refresh, it might help.
Right, okay, let me get rid of everything bar Regency. How's that?
Should be alright now. Try again.
Okay. All right, where are we going with this conversation? Where did it get taken from? Which one are they? Jeff's question was: is it a jizya tax hidden, or is it zakat? Which one is it? Because it will have a tax on it, won't it? One of these taxes, because it has to. All products through that religion has to have a tax on it. So which one is it? I don't know.
Well, I think all taxes on, as I said, and I stand by this, I think all taxes on food and beverages, I think it's morally reprehensible that anybody should have to pay a tax on basics. Anything that's basics like food, water, even fuel for heating your home, because in a country like this, it gets very cold in the winter. Our pensioners, especially, and elderly people or infirm people, need heating to keep themselves warm, to stop themselves becoming ill from the cold and dying of, pneumonia and things like that. I think it's morally reprehensible that anybody should have to pay any form of tax whatsoever on food, beverages, and fuel heating. I think it's just wrong. I think it's just basically wrong. That's just my personal opinion.
Well, yeah, I agree with you, but if there's going to be tax, this is where I think I'm coming from as well on this, or trying to put my point up. Now, if the product is from a country like Pakistan or Saudi Arabia, and an Islamic state-run country, and it's a traditional product from that country, then fair enough. But if they start sticking halal labels on things like cornflakes, Cadbury's chocolate, Marmite, these are not traditional cultural Islamic state foods. And I think it's a little bit, I don't know whether it's right or wrong. I'm not saying, I'm just thinking I don't quite get that. To me, it doesn't seem logical as much as if it's a traditional Islamic run country product, then fair enough. But if it's not one of those and it's your normal stuff, like I say, my cornflakes, chocolate, things like that, then I don't think it should be allowed to be halal certificated. Personally,
well, yes.
I don't know what your thoughts is on that, Jeff.
I think that's certainly a good point, Stuff. Definitely. Foods that we've traditionally had over here for centuries or whatever. We should be able to eat them tax-free. No form of tax whatsoever. And like you say, if a foreign culture is coming into this country and saying you now have to pay tax on things that you've enjoyed for generations, then in a way that's like saying we are now an Islamic state and you have to abide by the laws of an Islamic state. I think it's absolutely horrendous. I think it's wrong. I think it's absolutely wrong, 100% wrong, immoral, and it's basically immoral.
I don't agree with it whether it should be part of the law of the country that's not an Islamic state, like the UK is allegedly not. But
I'm not here.
I'm saying legally it shouldn't be allowed, regardless, even if it is a cultural product from another country. It shouldn't be, because it's not you're not in that country. Simple as that. But no, I mean, logically, I could understand why perhaps that might seem like, oh, I'm going to have a Chinese meal, and it's all traditionally Chinese, cooked by Chinese, it's Chinese products, and therefore you have to pay a Chinese tax as a cultural gift, as a a non-obligatory thing, because you like that meal and you like that culture. And then if you want to give charity or whatever in a form of a tax, then fair enough, or whatever you want to call it, because charity is tax today, isn't it? All of this stuff, they say they're not taxes, but
they've sort of blurred the lines, haven't they? If you go into a shop, and you want to buy a kebab, you shouldn't be forced to pay any sort of jizya tax, even if you're buying a kebab from a shop, because we're in England. We're not in, outer Pakistan or whatever, or outer Mongolia or whatever it is. I mean, if there's a charity you want to give to, if you think that it's a worthy charity, then they should have a collection pot in the shop, and you should stick a few pence in the collection pot. And when they're blurring the lines between charity and tax, then as far as I'm concerned, that's wrong. Because a charity is a charity, a tax is a tax, and never the twain shall meet, in my opinion. That's just the way I see it. You shouldn't be forced to pay anything. If it's charity, it means you choose. With a charity, you choose. You decide whether you want to give to that charity or not. That's the way I see it. I mean, why are they blurring the lines between charity and tax? Is wrong.
Well, I've got to agree with that, Jeff. At least if you're going to have to pay a tax, then you should first be made aware that you're paying it. I think that's a nice approach. If it's done like under stealth mode, where you don't even have a clue, where it's just you're blatant against not even knowing what you're funding, then I think that's a bit wrong. Is that partly on the consumers, part as well? Then maybe so, but I think they do or should have some sort of duty to make people aware what it is they're actually buying and how much goes to what, so people. Well, I agree. Yeah.
I agree 100% there, PJ. Yeah, absolutely. I'm just enjoying a bag of crisps at the moment.
It got a certificate on it.
Has it got what?
Has it got a certificate on it?
No, it's got no certificate. It's tax. As far as I'm concerned, it's tax free. I mean, it might be. I don't know.
Well, it is a zakat. On the halal products, they call it zakat. So there we are.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so if it's got a certificate on it, a halal certificate, then tax is part and parcel of the price. It may be hidden within the price, but there is a tax, a zakat tax. Now, it would be interesting to know that in any other country that's not an Islamic state, be it UK, USA, or whatever, do they have the legislation in these countries that that they have to pay this zakat? Is it legislated that you have to abide by this zakat on these products? That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Indeed. I'm afraid I don't know all the ins and outs of it all. I mean, if it was me and I ran this country, I'd make a blanket ban on any taxes whatsoever on any food, beverages, or heating fuel, anything like heating fuel for homes and what have you. There'd be a complete blanket ban on all taxes, regardless of whether it's halal or whatever. That's me personally, but that's what I believe. But still.
Or maybe it's just bundled into tax. Maybe it just comes under tax, not income tax or value added, which is an EU thing anyway. But what does it come? If it is in there, what's it bundled under? Unless I can find legislation saying zakat written on it, it would be, you could presume that there isn't one legislated for. Otherwise, it would say zakat, wouldn't it? So I just wonder why perhaps people haven't asked this, other than I don't know.
I mean, I'm British, Stav. Where I come from, zakat is something that's chased by the dog. You know what I mean? That's the way I see it.
Yeah. So anyway, we got to take away food. So if you don't want to pay this in a takeaway food, then maybe you should only buy takeaway foods that are not anything to do with halal products. I mean, obviously, certain foods will be obviously free of that. I just use your own imagination. And why perhaps there isn't more takeaways like you suggested, Jeff, the bacon full breakfast service that you can have as a takeaway. Then you can be pretty sure that there ain't going to be any hidden taxes on that other than the taxes that you already know, like VAT, the transportation of the goods to and from the shops you buy or services you buy from, I suppose.
I mean, to enlarge on what I've said, Stav, I said that charity is charity and tax is tax. Well, I think, to be honest, I don't really agree with tax being forced on people anyway, because taxation is a form of theft, if you like, because they're taking something without permission, effectively. When you're taxed, like, well, for example, I mean, what do they call it voluntary when you pay income tax? I suppose their attitude is, well, you volunteer to do the work.
Well,
So,
it goes back to that old saying, isn't it? It's easier to ask for forgiveness than it is permission.
But I mean, do they say that we're governed by consent? So are we taxed by consent? Because when you're paying income tax, for example, is their attitude, well, you chose to work, so you have to pay the tax? How does it work? I don't know. Good question. For example, think of another tax. Council tax. Well, let's take council tax, for example. Do you agree to pay council tax? Are you voluntarily paying council tax, or is it forced upon you? Because apparently, if you don't pay it, they throw you in jail. Doesn't sound very contributory to me. It sounds like it's forced. I mean, there's a difference between contributions and voluntary contributions, rather, and forced tax.
You contracted to pay your council tax.
Contracted.
Yeah.
So if I was charged council tax and I say, oh, I don't find it very nice tax, could you please provide proof of claim that I have agreed in a signed contract written with a wet ink signature? Will they provide me with a contract with a wet ink signature proving that I agree to pay this council tax?
Are you sure you're asking the question correctly?
Well, yes, I am.
How do you know that?
If you're the council and you say to
No, I understood what you said. I fully understood what you said.
Okay.
I said, right.
The response is when you ask any member at council about your council tax, they'll say it's a contributionary housing scheme. And everybody who's in a household is obligated to pay it, whether you like it or not. Even if you don't want their services, you still got to pay for them. I've tried every way to try and get around it, and they just don't have it. They will not have it. They'll go to lengths and depths to make sure you pay it.
What's the consequences if you don't pay it?
Well, it's imprisonment, isn't it? That's what they say. But is that imprisonment for refusal, or is that imprisonment for non-payment?
Exactly, that's my point. If you purchase a new house, yeah, purchase a new house and you don't register it, then what happens?
That brings to point another question. Should we have to register something that we purchase?
So this is the old Freeman argument, isn't it? Do you have to register it?
Obliged to register anything that we purchase? Are we actually obliged to do that?
You're a bit quiet on your side, Jeff. Can you turn your mic up a little?
Yeah, sorry. sorry, I was away from the mic. What I was saying was, should we be obliged by law? Are we obliged by law to register anything that we purchase, like a house, land, whatever? Is there a law that says we have to?
Well, I don't know, but a lot of them get me quite infuriated. And one, I'll tell you one, inheritance tax. That proper does get to me.
Well, yeah, because your parents collected whatever money they've collected over the years, they've already paid tax on. So it's a tax upon a tax, isn't it? In a way, taxes upon taxes upon taxes. You probably find that they've had to pay several taxes throughout to get what they've got, and then when they have to pay taxes again, but actually, I think with inheritance tax, you only pay an inheritance tax if you're leaving over a certain amount to your heir, your child, or whatever. I think it has to be over something like, I don't know,
370,000.
£375,000 or whatever. Yeah, something. I believe you're correct, Jouster. Yeah. So if you leave over £375,000 to a child or whatever, you pay an inheritance tax. Well, I don't really agree with that either. I think it's sort of morally reprehensible as well. But there you go. That's just why I'm anti-tax generally, as you probably surmised by now. I believe
No.
I believe all taxes should be voluntary. I think we can. I think we can do what we do in society through voluntary means. I believe in voluntarism. I don't believe in all this forced tax nonsense. People that have the ability to give, if they wish to do so, they should be able to. That's through choice. I'm pro-choice in that way. I think people should be able to have that choice.
What happens if they changed it, Jeff? Right, you're talking about tax, right? If they changed it from an actual obligation of paying tax, all right, if that's what they say in their statutory obligation, as they call it, what happens if they changed it to a service, where if you require the service, you pay for it, and if you don't require the service, you don't pay for it. In other words, you opt in to pay for the service rather than being obliged to pay a tax on everything. How about if it's like a service rather than a tax? A bit like I don't know, whatever you pay. Like if you're as a road user, right? You want to use the road, you pay for the service of the maintenance of the road, and it's collected, and it's you've got full disclosure of what you're paying does indeed go onto the roads and nothing else. How would you feel about that as a form of payment service?
Actually, in a way, it's certainly a lot fairer. It's a lot fairer system. I think road tax, for example, I think would be better if it was actually put on the fuel. Because if you're using the road a lot, you're going to be using a lot more fuel. And I think it should be just put on the price of the fuel. So, if you're buying petrol or gasoline, whatever you want to call it, or diesel.
Well, they do that, don't they? They do it both.
Having said that, I mean, some of those fuels you will want to use for heating. Now, I don't believe you should pay tax when it comes to heating your home. So I don't know if that would be. I don't know what the best way around that would be.
Well, at the end of the day, Jeff, you don't want tax on food. Yeah, you don't want road tax.
No, I think if you pay if you use a service, I believe you should pay for it. So if you're, for example, using the road, yes, I agree with road tax or some form of taxation necessary to pay for the costs of repairing the roads and the road signs and all that. Then yes, I think you should be obliged to pay a road tax. of some form, whether it's on fuel or whatever, however it's implemented. I don't know which. I
What
think
about
that's
what
the way to
about older Jeff? What about a path tax, a pavement tax?
a pavement tax for pedestrians.
Yeah,
A walking tax.
walking tax.
No,
Eh?
no, because no, there's a difference between a vehicle and what you are. You know, you're born with legs. It's not something that you don't decide that you don't work. You're not born with wheels, are you?
Yeah, I think you should get a pavement walking tax because all these people who trip over on these sort of flattened paths where you trip over and break your arm or your leg or something, you need to find the compensation from somewhere. So yeah, I totally agree with that. Like,
That's a good point, though. Actually, make a brilliant point there.
Yeah, but then, but
Well, yeah.
then they should take the taxes of local council taxes that should be paid to keep those payments in. If they want to bring in a tax for walking on pavements, I'd agree with you. But they can't tax you. They can't double tick, triple tick.
lads, I was
In-
only
in the
kidding.
tax.
I was only kidding. I don't think they should be taxing
was
anybody
like-
for walking. Those paths should be level in the first fucking place. No.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're right,
Yeah.
England anyway.
Yeah.
I was hoping you were joking, actually.
Who is that, by the way? Who is that who just spoke, by the way? I don't know who that is.
Andy. I think it's Andy, isn't it, Andy?
Hello. All right. Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah,
had
it's Andy.
Andy or Anthony.
Andy.
Andy. All right, Andy. How's it going on, Jeff?
Paul and Jeff. Hello.
Yeah, I think there's different ways to look at things. I think if you demand a service and service is provided, there should be a fee for that service. Road fund tax, road fund license. It's not actually road tax. We don't have road tax in the UK anymore. That was abolished a long time ago. Road tax. People believe that we've got road tax. What we've actually got is a road fund license, which is slightly different. I don't know how much of that actually goes towards paying for the repairs to our roads or whatever. I'm not absolutely sure, and I couldn't say. But yeah, it's called road fund license, which is different from, of course, your driving license, which is another thing altogether. The road driving license, that's another thing. Some things they call a license could be considered a tax of sorts. I don't really agree with having to pay for a license, because if it's the government that's requiring you to have a license and they're not providing anything in return for that license, then I don't believe you should have to pay for a license. I don't really like licenses. A license to me is taking a freedom off of you and selling it back to you in the form of a license.
Well, you didn't have any freedom in the first place.
You'd think it'd be more economical to give people the licenses for free so they can get jobs and create their own jobs.
Yeah.
That's That's not the purpose of a license.
What's the purpose of a license then, Joseph?
Purpose of it's self-explanatory. A license to carry out or act upon.
Permission. It's a permission.
It's a temporary contract. It's
Yeah.
a permit. It's a permit
Yeah,
to carry out. You don't get a license for nothing. If I have private fishing rights,
So,
you pay for
so it's
fish. You pay.
It's permission to ask to do something that's normally illegal.
No. Well, yes, set out under state legislation. Yeah, determined by the House of Parliament.
The word permit derives from the word permission, which is what I said. So,
Well, yeah. Yeah.
It's basically paying for permission.
It's not yours, is it? Basically,
They're saying you have
could
unless you pay for it, basically, in the form of a license. Right.
you could go back along the old. It's all held in trust, blah blah blah, and it's determined by the powers that be, and it's distributed fairly and equally, and they come to a decision where they're going to issue a license. Because foreigners are not, tourists and whatever. If they want to temporarily live here, then they have a license under their own sovereign state rules under a certain amount of time, don't they, until they have to change over.
Yeah.
Related with is the fact that we used to have a paper license. You're guaranteed a license to once you passed your driving test, which I think a driving test is a good idea because you know you have to have a certain level of competence to be on the roads. If you're completely incompetent, you can cause accidents. So I think a driving test is a good thing. I think the old paper license was good. You could have a paper license and you didn't pay anything for it. Once you passed your test, you were issued a license for free and you were able to use that until you're 70 years of age. And now you've got these bloody photographs on the driving license where you have to renew every 10 years at the cost of £20 plus the cost of the photograph.
Legalised identification cards, it's the first step for tagging us completely, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on fishing license, Jeff?
Fishing
Bollocks.
license, well, if it's a private landowner, well, the fact of whether people should be able to own the land and the lakes and everything else is debatable.
What about the rivers?
If somebody's got their own private lake that they built, for example, and they stock it with fish, and somebody says you've got to have a day license to fish here or whatever, then then that's their charge for using their service.
No, it's not. It's nothing to do with the fish.
Exactly.
Fishing license. You can if you wanted to fish a puddle on the side of the road and it had no fish, it was just rainwater. A puddle formed. To fish in that puddle, you would have to have a water authority license to fish in it. It's not about catching fish. A license to fish.
No, it's about the
A water board guy told me that.
It's about the assembly of a rod and a hook combined with a bit of water.
Yeah, it's fishing rights are nothing to do with the catch or the fish. It's the same. Well, it's not the same as the common fisheries policy, but in the UK, I asked that, and the bloke said, "Look, mate," he said, "it doesn't matter whether there's no fish in this river or this lake or whatever. That's irrelevant. To fish in any water whatsoever, to angle. That's right. Angle. What they call angle. You have to have a water authority license to do it."
I used to live with the New Age Travellers, and we used to like snare rabbits, and we used to fish the rivers, and got nicked for fishing the rivers, and they tried saying to me, they're charging me with all and fining me and stuff like that. But I lived in my van, and I ate the wildlife. Do you know what I mean? That's what I survived on. And my opinion is nobody's got the right to stop you fucking fishing. Obviously, if it's in private water, then fair dues. But when you're surviving on the wildlife, the berries, the food, do you know what I mean? That's out there you can eat, which is what I did for a couple of years.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's got the right to stop anyone from fishing in the rivers. I don't care whether they've stocked it or whatever they've stocked. You know, I was arguing with the police that was saying, "What was you fishing for?" I went, "Brown trout." And I went, "Oh, so you don't know about the salmon route coming up the river?" Well, of course I fucking did. But if I admitted to the police that I knew that, then they'd do me for poaching, because up the river there's a salmon farm where they've released the eggs into the river and then claimed it as their own river, because salmon come up there once a fucking year, and therefore I'm not allowed to fish brown trout, which I fish all year round when I used to live like that. You know what I mean? No one's.
So what did you say to the judge?
I didn't even get up to court. They didn't charge me in the fuck. Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, they did. They tried fining me something like £18,000, but it ended up going down to like 250 quid, because I argued the point of well, I never ever paid the fine, by the way. Never paid the fine, never paid any of the fines the system to me. But yeah, they knocked it down to about 250 quid because I lived in the van. But they'd actually confiscated my van anyway as part of the evidence of what I was doing.
So you had a brief, did you?
No.
So did you stand before a judge?
Yeah.
What were your words that you said to the judge?
Oh God, I can't remember now. It was a few years ago. I just basically said, "Look, I live off the land. I live in the river.
Yeah.
How has anybody got the right to tell me that I can't catch fish?" I said, "Are you going to charge me for snaring rabbits as well? Because I admitted to that as well. You know what I mean? I'm killing the odd pheasant, like, hey."
Well, that wasn't the point I was trying to make. When he said, "What are you fishing for?"
Oh, I know it's for brown
Yeah.
trout.
No,
Brown
exactly. I wouldn't have said that. I'd have said, "Well, whatever gets on the end of my line."
Fishing for me,
Well, I know
Yeah.
that brown trout, they can't claim to have fed the river with brown trout because brown trout's pretty sort of common in most rivers in Britain, eh?
Yeah, it's not. It's a non-migratory trout. Brown
Yeah.
trout are not sea trout. And the
That's
thing
right.
is, Andy, now if you'd have caught those fish, right, with harpoon, if you'd have speared them out of that river, there was nothing they could do. But
Yeah.
because you was using a hook and line and you were fishing and angling, you need a license. Now, as long as you went along, if that river was on the side of a road which is public, now that doesn't belong to any rights of any landowners. That's public. If you go to a river that runs alongside of a road, right,
Yeah, it does.
you
It
can
did as
go
well.
into that river, get those fish out, whether you spear them, as long as you don't use a hook and line, it's not illegal to take those fish and eat them because the Polish people do it all the time and it's not illegal. But
Yeah.
if you use a rod and line, you have to have a license.
The where Kaz, I don't know if you know Kaz from is it Huddersfield, near Huddersfield anyway. You know, she's
Did the roadside protests?
Kaz Tigger.
Is that right? Did the you did the roadside protests?
I'm not sure if she got involved in it. I don't know. She was exposing about the child abuse and all the things that had happened to her in care and stuff like that. Kaz Tigger, her name is on Facebook.
I'm not sure, but go on.
You know what I'm on about, don't you, PJ? You there, PJ? PJ's gone. PJ. Yeah. She was saying that there's locks and that right near her house. I've been down there a few times, gone and visited her, and there's loads of locks near her house. And there used to be a lot of fishing in rivers. When you're talking about the Polish people fishing our rivers, they're killing our fucking rivers by fishing them as much as they do. And especially where Kaz lives, eh? He said you can't catch fish anymore, there ain't no.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's right. But if you was to net them, trap them, don't use a rod and line, hook and line. That's angling. That you have to have a license to do that. But if you catch those fish in any other method, in any other way, apart from hook and line, you can take those fish and you can eat them. It's not illegal.
What about if you tickle trout, for example, and catch
You
them with
can,
your hand?
as long as they're non-migratory trout. Andy makes a good point. If the sea trout which run to sea to breed, or salmon and Sea Trout Act is a law in itself because it protects the high and mighty and their salmon license run fish in their rivers that the authority stops.
I think
it is complicated. It is complicated, but
Andy has got a good point because we're natural beings, right? Now we should have the right to live off the land.
Of course you should. Yeah.
We should have the right to be able to hunt our own food, as our ancestors did. To be able to hunt what we want, fish the rivers however we want, and forage for food. Because I don't believe personally in land ownership. I don't believe in the feudal system. I think the feudal system is corrupt. Land is a natural resource like rain or air that you breathe. So where is it all going to lead to? Are they going to eventually tax us for the air that we breathe? I would not put it past them because it's all been a slippery slope as far as I'm concerned. And gradually, incrementally.
Well, they're already doing that under climate change fucking shit, isn't it?
The CO2 rubbish, the stuff about global warming, which has got nothing to do with CO2 whatsoever. Which is,
I mean, at the end of the day, Jeff, there's a bit of common sense, isn't it? You don't have migratory herds of wild animals in this country anymore. Plus, you have 62 million people. There ain't enough wild food to feed the population, is there?
Yeah, well, yeah.
I mean, you can decimate it within 1 month. There'd be nothing alive in this country if you said that. If that was the case, would you? So off you go. Go and catch whatever you want. Eat what you want. Fair enough. Off they go.
It should be a matter of choice. I mean,
Oh, there is no. Yeah, common sense though. There is no choice. You'd have no wildlife, would you?
Mate, most people wouldn't know how the fuck to catch a fucking rabbit or anything anyway, would they?
Well,
They'd
believe
just
it or not,
starve to death.
they'd learn actually. If they said it was free, I mean, it's like the American crayfish. You can take that out of the river, but you've got to have a license, and you can take as much as you want out.
I don't know. Did you ever watch that series, Cook It, Kill It, and Eat It? I think it's called Cook It, Kill It, and Eat It. Now, the vast majority of people would not go out and kill their own beasts to eat.
They would if they're starving.
Well, the vast majority would rather go and buy it from the supermarket. Now, you say if they're starving.
No, I'm just saying. Let's put.
Yeah,
So
but
put us in a situation where they're,
in realistic terms, most of our food is imported, and most people have got a choice to go to a supermarket and buy their food. The vast majority of people will not go out and kill their own beasts to eat. The vast majority will go to the supermarket and buy it. But for the odd person out there, the occasional person out there that wants to go out and hunt a rabbit or something to put in the pot, I don't think there's anything wrong with hunting an animal if you intend to eat it.
Yeah.
Intend to eat it, I think it's natural. I think it's something you should be able to choose to do.
Well,
And
no, I
there's
wasn't
plenty
disputing.
of-
Oh, yeah.
You can do that. Yeah. You
I
can
wasn't
do
disputing
that.
that. I wasn't disputing that.
Forage, for example. Now we've got bylaws here in Bristol, whereby now no person shall remove any part of a plant on public land. Now wait a minute, this was meant for parks and things like that, apparently, but apparently that can be applied to any public land. Now, wait a minute, if I want to go out and forage for some blackberries to go in an apple and blackberry and crumble or something.
Yeah.
I should be able to go out and pick some blackberries in autumn time. That should be my choice. But they've taken that away with bylaws. See, this is sort of slippery slope that you're on, and now they've outlawed hunting. Now, I used to be able to go out and, well, I didn't snare rabbits, I must admit. I used to go ferreting, or I used to go and shoot rabbits. But you should be able to choose to go out. And,
Can do, Jeff. You can do. You can do. I used to go shooting across. I used to go shooting across the marshes here with my mate, shoot duck, pheasant, all sorts of stuff. All we had to do was get permission of the landowner, and he used to bung him a bottle of whiskey every year, and he was quite happy with that. And plus, we kept down, vermin if we wanted to double up and shoot some vermin. So we used to do that all the time. I don't think there's any bylaws stopping that. And as for foraging, I'd like to see him try and stop me picking blackberries and wild stuff, which I do every autumn. Yeah, they can try that one on me. Yeah,
I wouldn't
let them try
put it
that one on
past
me.
them.
we used to go out.
Well, let them try it. That's all I say.
Me and my mates, we used to go out shooting. Like you say, you asked the landowner, and if he said yeah, you could go out and sit out by the bushes, wait for the bush rabbits to come out and shoot them, or you could go down to the local set where there's a load of rabbits on the ground, and you net it up and shove a ferret down, and Bob's your uncle. But now you can't do that because of bylaws. They brought in all these bloody stupid bylaws. You can't do anything now. This is
Yeah. Listen, if I go onto a farm, their bylaws mean nothing. I ask permission for the farmer to go and trap.
bylaws apply to public land. These apply to not private land. So yes, you could probably still go on somebody's land with their permission, and do this and that. So yes, there's probably that you can do. But
yeah, that's right. So I mean, these council bylaws they probably apply to the local park where everybody sits down and has a picnic, and it's all cut back anyway, and you'd be lucky to find any wild bloody blackberries growing there anyway, because they cut most of the bushes back nowadays, don't they? So I think you can still go up the old ex-railway line and go and pick plenty of blackberries. I think it's stretching it a bit, Jeff. Don't you think?
Yeah, I just think I just see an incremental increase in the amount of laws, legislation, bylaws, and all the rest of it. They just gradually, over a period of time, increase it so that they restrict you more and more and more and expect more and more taxes in return. And
well, I've said this before. If I wanted to be right, let's say you had a family connection of Romany bloodline, which most people in Europe do anyway.
Yeah.
If you go and look at the history, right, and you wanted to live as a Romany gypsy, right, with your barrel top wagon and your horse, right, there's no way they can stick legal charges on you for road traffic acts and that. If they did, you could do them for racism. Simple as.
Maybe we'll go back to being that then. Nomadic Romanies with our horse and cart.
They wouldn't come nowhere near you. They'd be frightened to death to try and stick something on.
If you've got a horse and cart, there's no license needed, no tax, no MOT, no insurance, none of that.
You don't need it for a horse and cart, do you? What can they stick on you? Oh, sorry, you need a I don't know, the shoe tax on the horse. No, I don't think so. Where does it stop with this? And you could actually have them over a barrel and say, "This is my culture, mate. This. I got Romany blood in me, and I can prove it through the history books, which most people in the UK, in Europe, can, because we're all Roma people from India, according to the scientists, anyway."
Right. We need to fight the system then to fight back or become Romanies.
Wow.
Then again,
don't even bother. Travel community did that.
Then again, you've got to have somewhere to be able to keep a horse, and most of us don't own any land. So, they've got you that way.
You don't need land, you just use the size of the verges, don't you?
That's it.
Well, that's
okay. It. You just go from place to place.
But that's the lifestyle you choose, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And once you choose that lifestyle, most of the time you're going to be stuck with it.
That's all right. Well, would you like to pay any tax? No, thank you.
Pros and cons, haven't it? So you have to weigh the pros and cons of doing such a thing.
Yeah. So I mean, we got to be careful with all of this. Really, it would just be nice to know what their so-called laws are as regards taxes on food, taxes on this, taxes on that, bylaws on this, bylaws on that. It would be nice to sort of have some guidance, because I think you can't possibly know every single statutory act in what they've passed since the Parliament Act or whatever it was. Does everybody know them? Do you know them, Jeff?
You've got to be a supercomputer to know that.
We weren't talking about school. There's so many of them. Apparently, there's hundreds of thousands of different statutes, directives from the EU and everything else. Now, as far as I'm concerned, all these bloody laws, there's too many of them. Too many of them to start with, because, if you can't count them on a couple of hands, these laws, you've got too bloody many. The average person can't remember them. I mean, if you've got to learn to be a lawyer to abide by the law, you've got to spend 7 years. Maybe we should put everybody in law school for 7 years so that they haven't got the excuse of ignorance of the law. As far as I'm concerned, you've got every excuse for ignorance of the law, because if you've got like 200,000 laws or whatever, it's ridiculous. How are you expected to know that? We're not even taught it at school.
Well, there was a time. Let me just quote you something. Bit of history here, Jeff.
Yeah, go on.
There was a time when every citizen in this country did know the law, because they had one book in the house. What book was that, Jeff?
I bet it was the Bible and it was the Ten Commandments.
It was the Bible and what?
And the Ten Commandments.
And how many years can remember the Ten Commandments? It's when you were speaking about laws on,
Yeah, absolutely right, mate. Most people had a copy of the King James Bible, and if they were rich, they had a copy of Shakespeare.
And all they had to remember was the Ten Commandments.
Yeah, and that was the days when people did know the laws. The rest was common sense.
Yep. Yes, indeed. Well, it's a bit different from that now, isn't it? It's gone from 10 commandments or laws or whatever you want to call them to like hundreds of thousands of the damn things.
Yeah.
What was
How
that?
how about a flat civil society service charge? Get rid of all the taxes, right? All of these statutory acts, which most of them are hidden stealth taxes and God knows what. Get rid of them all and say, look, you pay a one flat service rate for all of society's needs, like say 10%. 10% service flat
No,
rate.
an all in one tax.
Well, I wouldn't call it a tax, I'd call it a service rate.
Well, whatever. But an all in one. So everything's like
Yes.
all. Yeah.
In one
That's
service
right.
charge.
Yeah.
Paying
All right,
for-
the people will call it a flat tax then. Let's call it for what it is. Yeah.
Now, that would be more honest, because what you've got at the moment is hundreds of different bloody taxes, stealth taxes, and things you don't even know exist. So it's
That's right.
far from honest. It's a very deceptive system that we live in. I would happily agree to, a one service charge, a one flat rate service charge, rate tax, whatever you want to call it. As long as you're getting the services provided for with that tax and it's spent where it's supposed to go, then I think that'd be a much more honest system, at least.
And within that, right, they have a monetary system which is interest free.
Yeah, definitely. That's a must. No interest. Get rid of all the interest and usury, because that's just a tax on the poor. Because it's only
Yeah.
the poor that needs to go for a loan, isn't it?
Yes.
Now, do you want to tell Stav our little conversation the other night, Jeff? What we came to the conclusion with, if you had an interest, we did do this, Stav. It was quite interesting. Jeff, I gave Jeff an option of building his own society from scratch,
All right.
right?
Yeah.
And when we got to the question of a non-fiat based currency, I asked him the question. I said, if you wanted to go on holiday to another country, say France, that doesn't use your system, how would that work out? You remember what I said, Jeff?
Vaguely. Well, I mean, what we've got at the moment is an exchange rate mechanism sort of thing, isn't it?
No, I said no. I just describe what.
Mhm.
Just describe as a tourist going on holiday. Yeah, and you had a mechanism of everything self-circulating, and the debt repays itself. Yeah. Now, as a tourist, you want to go to France for the day, and you've got to book a hotel for £96 a night, and a meal's going to cost you, let's say, 30 quid. Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't pay it.
No, I know you wouldn't pay it.
I wouldn't go for that because I wouldn't spend £96 a
You
night.
wouldn't be able to go to France then.
Well, yeah, I would. I'd just find somewhere cheaper. I wouldn't pay £96 a bloody night for accommodation. I mean, that's like 700 quid a week.
Well, whatever, but
It's stuck in a tent.
So what you're saying, I think I pick up where you're coming from, Jouster. You can only do an exchange rate mechanism with a hegemonic reserve world currency, yeah? Is that what you're saying?
More or less, yeah.
Well, how about you don't have reserve currency, and your currency is based on either your resources or your productivity. And if that country in France is a better productivity country than yours, and you have an exchange rate mechanism floated openly on the productivity by ratings of where your country is, and then the exchange rate is established on that rating, how would that sound?
Well, I was basically, the scenario was that England was a fifth world nation, yeah, because it wanted nothing to do with the international monetary exchange whatsoever, except limited exports. And basically, Jeff was putting his wages down back to 1965, yeah.
Right.
Now, France,
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So the rate of wealth. So basically, you'd be paid 6.5 pence an hour right? Or 80 pence a day. And you then have to go over to France. I don't know whether Jeff's going to go over in a little rowing boat or not. I don't know, because he ain't getting on the ferry. Because he's just paid 2.5 years' wages just to get the ferry charge. That's what I was putting to him.
Well, yeah, but
He's not going to France. I mean,
no,
he's not even doing a pilgrimage, because someone tried that 2 years ago. So I think they got as far as Calais and had to come back home. But
well, they used to do that in the days of the Knights Templars. You know, the original first bankers of the world, so to speak. But then it was done on a precious metal type of thing.
What was done?
How much was? Yeah, well, basically, yes.
What?
You know, the old
What was done?
wealth across Europe was done on.
Are you talking about a pilgrimage?
Pardon?
Are you talking about a pilgrimage?
Yes, when the pilgrims used to want to go from the UK.
Yeah, I just threw that in. I was just giving an option if you want. If Jeff was going to say, "Oh, I'll walk there for free," but a guy from Scotland travelled down to Dover,
Right.
got over to France, and I think he got 150 miles in something. Then he found that people were so stingy they wouldn't even give him any water or anything. So he gave up and came home. He was going to do a pilgrimage to Jerusalem. We'll see if he could do it.
I think you could. There was a Russian guy who you had to have a product, or you had to have a service. There was a Russian guy who went to go around. It was good actually. It was on RT. It was quite a good documentary. He went round the whole of Russia, and I think he was going to take in the whole of Europe. I never finished watching the series, but he was he was an artist. He could draw, and he lived.
He was a journeyman.
That's right. Yes. So he would go around, sit in the street or the next town or whatever, and he'd do portraits, quick portraits of people in pencil, and people would give him a few quid, whatever it was, which country it was worth him getting a meal, and digs if he could earn enough for that night. If not, he slept on the street and had a hot toddy or whatever and made the best of it. And he'd done it quite easily, actually, when you look at. And his craft was some bits of charcoal and bits of paper, whatever he could get. And that's how he got through, and that's how he toured around Russia and parts of Europe. So I don't know whether he extended it to the world in the end or not. I don't know, but he was providing the service from country to country, from wherever he went. Yeah, anything's possible if you want to do it.
Yeah, but he was doing
now,
it.
Jeff would have to do something like that. He can't go for free, no, because they'll find it. They'll come up against somebody who says, well, I'm not giving you any water or food because I'm not a Christian and I'm not a humanitarian. I believe in, somebody has to do something. So you'd have to do something, yeah, I guess. I suppose. What's my point?
Yeah, so Jeff, you've got to get a trade.
He learned to sing.
A storyteller.
Yes. Yeah, anything. Juggling, or the what do you call it? The shells trick. Where's the pea under the shell? Something like that. I don't know. But innovate, create. If you've got to feed yourself, you'd soon think of something, wouldn't you, Justin? You'd have to. Jeff would probably say, Stav, teach me those 3 chords that there's 20,000 songs I can play.
Chocolate at the moment, listening to you guys.
Is that Cadbury's?
I was about to do that stuff. I wasn't really said chocolate.
No,
Is it halal free?
it's Tesco's Everyday Value Milk Chocolate.
Nikki bought a couple of those bars the other day.
Yeah, they're not too bad. 45p for a bar of chocolate.
Do you eat the whole bar?
Oh yeah.
What, in one go?
Oh yes. Yes. Yeah. Very nice.
This is Jeff we're talking about stuff. Have you met him before?
No, I don't have to, Justin. I don't have to.
It's a human gannet.
Imagine